Hello everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of the CZ75 P-01 upgrade. So I finally got this back. Today is Saturday, and I got this back on Friday, and I took it to the range, and I put 120 rounds through it. And it was flawless. It worked flawless, and the trigger pull is so much nicer, and the sights are so much nicer. I had these True Glow sights put on it. These are the original sights inside here, for safekeeping. So I have the original sights. I'll put these somewhere. And first thing we'll do is we're going to check this firearm. Hands off the trigger. We're going to drop the mag. We have an empty mag. We're going to put this off to the side. I can physically see, and I'm going to check with my finger. This firearm is safe, and it is empty. So, with the sights, there's the sight picture. That's the new sight picture. Before, it was small little white dots. They were super small. I could hardly even see them. These are tritium, glow in the dark, and they're also fiber optic. And the very front, you can see there's an orange ring around the green tritium fiber optic sight. So it catches light from the sun, and it also has tritium in it on both. So it shows, and they're excellent. You can even see them in the dark. I'm not going to turn out the lights and all that kind of stuff. And what we'll do right now is we'll check, and then I'll break it down and show you what they had done. So we're going to pull the trigger in a safe direction. We know it's empty. And the last time, because I wrote it down, in the last video, we had a double action trigger pull of 9.5 to 9.25 pounds. And we had a single action of 4 3/4 to roughly 4.5 pounds, somewhere in that range. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide this back, and we're going to drop the hammer. That's the way it's carried. This is what we did last time. We're going to turn it upside down, and we are going to use this trigger gauge that I gotten as a gift. It's a GPS firearm trigger scale. That's what it is. It's I don't know how much it cost. I don't think it was all that much, but it's better than not having anything. So we're going to do the first trigger pull. Let me get it up here. And I'm pulling right from the center of the trigger straight back. And I brought that to 8. The first pull was 8 3/4. The original was 9 1/4 to 9.5. So that's the first one. Let's bring it back. Let's put it back to half cock again. And we'll do it again. And we're pulling. This time it was 7 3/4. Almost 8. But it's a super smooth pull. So it lowered it about a pound, roughly about a pound to 1.25 pounds. It lowered that double action pull, and you can really notice it. It lowered it, and it made it smoother. Now, if I pull it back to where it would be after your first initial, firing, it's going to bring it back to single action, and the hammer will be back like that. So let's set this up again. And before we were getting 4 3/4. Let's see what we get this time. I got 2 3/4, roughly 2 3/4. You can see that right there. So that's the first pull, 2 3/4. We'll do it again. So that lowered that from 4 3/4 to 2 3/4. And we'll try it again. And that pull was roughly the same thing. Actually, it's right on the money at 3 pounds. So that lowered that 1 3/4 pound or more. So it lowered the pull weight. Now, the one thing that it did, since we know this firearm and I is safe, and I couldn't do this before, I could pull this trigger. It is so smooth. I can pull this trigger and set this the way that it would be if I decocked it. So if you figure it's like this all the way back, and then I decock it, that's the way that you would carry it. All right, so we'll pull that, get that out the way. Now, this isn't the way that I would do it. I'm just saying I can physically do this now. I can pull this, and I can set the trigger to the decock mode. Now, I wouldn't do that if it was a loaded firearm. I'm just saying I can do that because the trigger pull is lighter and so smooth. It is like butter, silky smooth. And that's only going to get better the more rounds that go through it and the more it gets shot. And I wasn't able to do that before because the trigger pull was so hard that when I was pulling it, it just wouldn't do that. I wasn't able to do that. So that just goes to show how smooth it is. And the sights are that much better. And this upgrade did not cost that much. For all the parts, it was about $50. Then I went and had the work done. Here's the receipt for the work that was done. It was $116.60. You can see where it says for quantity, work, order, labor, CZ, USA 75 P-01, and here's the work order number, and with tax, it was $110, and then with tax came to $116. Here's all my parts, and you can tell these are the old parts because they're all jet black. I also had them put in which I can do, but I figured, what? They just threw it in. I just included it in, the whole package that I gave them. It has a stainless steel guide rod in it now, instead of this plastic guide rod. So everything's been upgraded. And what was upgraded is these are essentials. And anybody who has this firearm, any CZ75, is this pin right here, this firing pin, retaining pin, you need to replace that pin. Because the pin that originally comes with it that CZ sends you is known to fail if you do a lot of dry firing, or after you've put a lot of rounds through. If you put, like, say, 1,000 rounds through it, it can fail. I mean, completely break and fail. And CZ knows about it, and CZ won't change it. CZ says they want you to buy a pack of their pins, and for you to replace it after every so many, rounds. That's what they want you to do. The same thing goes with the trigger pin. The trigger pin. This has a solid steel floating trigger pin that is of super hard quality steel. It's not a roll pin, because that's known to fail too. CZ says the same thing about that. Keep an eye on it and to replace it. So I'm not going through all that replacing it, so I just put better quality things in it. Other things are The firing pin block spring, that's a little spring that was replaced to a lighter one. And the firing pin spring, it was replaced with a lighter one. And you can't see it. It's all internal inside the slide. And then the trigger return spring is a lighter trigger return spring. That's been replaced. The hammer spring that's in here underneath the grips has been replaced with a lighter one. And the sear spring that's inside of here has been replaced. All with a lighter one. And you just saw what the weights were. I took roughly a pound to a pound and a quarter off of this double action pull. And I took a pound to a pound and 3/4 off of the single action pull. And the trigger is butter smooth. It's only going to get better with time. It did not turn it into a race gun. It is still safe. And at my range, I'll put a link to my range so you can look at the range. It's actually a gun club. And I'll put a link in the description because they have videos on YouTube all about their range. So you can see the indoor and the outdoor shooting ranges, rifle ranges, the bow and arrow range, all that kind of stuff. The small bore rifle range. You can see videos of the indoor and the outdoor ranges. You can also hunt deer on the property in deer season. You can hunt turkey on the property. You can fish, trout fish, all that at the range that I go to. And they have most of all of the police forces that are in all these small townships all around this area. They all go to that range, and they have a separate part of the range that the police train at. That's how big that the range that I go to, which is actually a gun club. And just the other day, and this is what I have done, after I had this gun, I picked it up on Friday, and I went to the range right after I picked it up. So I was down there roughly around 5, 6 o'clock after I picked it up. I came home first and then gathered my stuff together, and then I went to the range to shoot this firearm to see how everything worked and all that stuff. Because I have 90 days to bring this back, if I need the sights corrected or anything, but I don't. Everything seems to be fine. My sight picture hasn't changed. I mean, it's better, but my point of impact and all that hasn't changed, and everything's fine. It just shoots better. But I was shooting with a police officer. We were both on the same firing line, and we were just shooting at the targets and all that kind of stuff. And he noticed the firearm. He asked me about it, and I was telling him, and I'm not worried about it. I'm legal, So I told him that, I just had this upgraded because the trigger pull was so hard and all that. And he checked it out. He shot this. I actually shot his service, pistol, his Glock, which I still don't like Glocks. I just don't like the way they feel in your hand. I just don't. Everybody likes something different. But, we shot each other's gun, and he said, that's a beautiful gun. He said, let me ask you something. He said, he didn't ask my name or any of that stuff. He said, let me ask you something. He says, did you save the receipt from the work that you had done on this? I said, yeah, I have that receipt. He goes, what about where you bought the parts? Did you save those receipts? I said, yep. The gunsmith told me to make sure I save all the receipts for the parts, the receipt for the work that he did, and I have, other than just this is just the cashier's receipt. I have the work order receipt all back in here. It's all, and it explains everything that was done, what was done. It has the gunsmith's signature and his name printed on it and all that. He says, good, hold on to that, because God forbid you ever have to use this in a self-defense situation, they're going to ask you all that. because they're going to do a forensics on this, and they're going to see that you had things changed, and they're going to ask you if you did them yourself. So you keep all those receipts so that you can prove you had a licensed gunsmith do it, and you didn't do it yourself, so that they can't go pull any of that, oh, well, do you think you know more than the gun manufacturers and all that stuff? They can't pull any of that on you. You bought legally obtained parts, and you had a licensed gunsmith install those parts. Because now if you're installing sights or putting a steel guide rod in, you don't need to do all that. He says, but with what you had done to this pistol, in case you do have to use it, will it come against you? Probably not, and maybe, you wouldn't have to worry about it. But it's always good to have a backup where you can say, hey, I didn't do that stuff myself. I had a licensed gunsmith do it and inspect all the parts, and they wouldn't do it if it was illegal or if it was going to turn it into a gun that would have been unsafe. They would not have done a licensed gunsmith at a licensed FFL dealer that is a big chain. FFL would not have done the work if they thought it would make the gun dangerous or against the law to have. They wouldn't turn it into a race gun. A gunsmith won't do that. They just won't do that. So I'm protecting myself just in case. So that's what's going on. And now I have to clean this gun, which I really don't feel like doing, but I do have to. So there's the sight picture again. And I hope you all enjoyed this video. This is probably the last time you'll be seeing this. I have to put my wood grips back on and all that kind of stuff. And now it's just a matter of me practicing and all that kind of stuff and just shooting and enjoying it. And I'm just going to put all this stuff in a safe place where I know where it is. And my family, it's actually just going to go in the gun case that comes with the gun. And that's it. So I showed you the differences in the trigger pull, and it's worth it. I didn't touch anything. A gunsmith did it. It works absolutely fine. No problems. And it wasn't that expensive. You figure $116 to have all the work done, and then roughly $50 for all the parts. And the parts are going to be exactly the same as, this is M Carbo. This company, M Carbo, that I got the parts from. If you get them from Cajun Gun Works, they're going to be the exact same parts. They look the same. They are exactly the same. And then there's another company called Apex. They do the same thing. They'll sell you the parts. You can buy it in a package. They're all the exact same parts, but some companies are more expensive than others. And some, you get a little bit more, like you'll get maybe an extra spring or an extra pin or something like that included in the package that you won't get with another company. So you're getting more for your money. Just do your research. They're all going to do the same trigger pull, the same smoothness, and all that kind of stuff, because they can only do so much without making it dangerous or have it not function. So it is what it is. Some may feel a little smoother, but it's not going to be that much that you have to notice. So that's what's going on. And I'll leave a link to my range so you can check out what range I shoot at and all that in case you're interested. And this will probably be the last video of the CZ75 P-01. Because now, with all these parts in it, I've only got 120 rounds through it. So now I got to start over again. I had 500 rounds through it. But now I got to start over again because I got all these new springs. And I'll give you a 1,000 round update. Who knows when that'll be? That could be a while. And look forward, because my next upgrade is going to be another thing that I have to take back to that exact same gun shop and gunsmith, and I'm going to be taking that Ruger 2245, the Mark IV 2245 light. I'm going to be taking that in, and I have this Volquartsen competition package. It's the pistol competition package, and it has the gold trigger, and it's going to make it, you just run a lot smoother and all that stuff. This has the same thing with springs and all kinds of stuff. You can look this up. Just look up the Volquartsen. You can just look at the pistol competition kit for the Mark IV 2245 light, or just the 2245. They're all the same internals. And I'll be having that done. And the only reason I'm waiting is I'm waiting on sights to come from Ruger Williams sights that are fiber optic sights for that pistol. And then that'll be it for my upgrades, other than I'll be putting new sights on the PC carbine, just so that they're fiber optic too, so I can see them better with my old eyes. So that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye now.